Hi there, I am Sumit Bansal, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to combine multiple CSV files when the column names are not the same. So columns have the same data, but the column names are inconsistent. For example, here in this folder I have these three files, east, central and west.csv, and if I show you some of these files, for example east.csv, you'll see that the first column is sales rep and the third one is, let's say, units sold. But if I open central.csv, the column name, the column header is salesperson and quantity sold. Now these are different, although it has the same kind of data, the header name is not the same. And if I try and combine this data in an Excel using Power Query, then this is the kind of data I would get. I would get the salesperson data for central, but for east I have the data as sales rep. So it creates a separate column and then puts the data here. Now I do not want it this way. I want all the names together and all the quantities sold together, and also have a consistent column header name. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to do that. For this, we are going to use Power Query, and I'm going to create a mapping table so that it gets all the column names, and then you can manually specify what is the column name you want in the final result, and then Power Query would pick that up. Now this process is completely dynamic, which means that once you have done this, no matter if you have 10 files or 100 files, no matter how many column names you have and how many different column names you have, it is going to be able to handle all of it. So let's see how to do this. Now let me first explain the process that we are going to follow. So there are going to be three steps. The first step is going to extract all the column names from all the CSV files. Now once we have all these column names, we are going to keep only the unique column header names, and then as step 2, you will have to manually create a mapping table. Now this has to be a manual step because Power Query has no idea what these columns mean. So you would have to go in and tell Power Query that these two column names that are different actually are the same column. So you need to probably, if you have salesperson and let's say salesperson name, then you would have to specify that both of these columns are same. So they should have the same column name. Once that mapping table is created, we will put that mapping table in Power Query again and then use that to combine all of these tables so that the entire data set, the combined data, has consistent column names and everything is properly combined. So let's start step by step. Let's start with the first step, which is to extract all the column names as one single column. So to get the column names from all the CSV files in a folder, I'm going to go to the data tab here, and then within get and transform, I would click on this get data option, then go to from file and then click on from folder. Now this is going to open a browse dialog box where I can choose the folder that has the files. In this case, I have these files in this folder called data files. And now when I click open, it is going to show me all the files that are there in the folder along with all the other metadata. So you can see I have three files here, central, east and west.csv. So it shows me the file names, the file content is in binary and all this other metadata. Now because I want to extract the column names, I would have to do further processing on these files. So I would click on transform data. And when I do that, it is going to open Power Query and open all of these files in Power Query. So I'll see again the same data here, but what I can do is now work with these columns. Now in this case, my data is in these files, in this binary files, and this is all this other metadata. Now one important thing that you can do here in this case is make sure that the files are actually the files you want, because in that folder you can have other files as well. You can have PDF files, you can have text files, and all those files would show up here. So if you only want to work with the CSV files, it's a good idea to filter here and make sure that you only get CSV files. Now in my case, it's only CSV files that are there in the folder, but in future if I add more files to it and I add text file or PDF file, those would also show up and that might break my query. So to future proof my query, I can come here and I can make sure that I apply a filter, let's say begins with, and here I can use .csv. And when I click OK, it is going to add a new step and you can see it is going to filter this data based on this text.csv. So only CSV files would show up here. Now, I do not want all these other columns. So I would right click on this binary column, the content column, and then click on remove other columns. Now, as of now, I just have the file. I do not have the actual data. So I would have to extract the actual data from these binary files. So to do that, I'm going to go to add column and then click on custom column. Now this is going to allow me to add a column, and in that column I can extract the table data from the binary file. So I would use this formula CSV.document, and within this function I would use content, which means that this formula is being applied on each row, and it is going to go into the content column, take each element, each row, and then apply this formula on it, which means that it is going to extract the table in the binary file and show it as a row. So see what happens when I click OK. It shows me this table here as the custom column. Now, if I click on the table, you'll see the preview here at the bottom. And while this is fine, there is a problem. The column names are still generic. I have column 1, column 2. And the reason for this is because my column names are actually in the first row, because Power Query would not be able to figure out whether that the first row is actually the data or it's the header. So I would have to now promote the first row as the header. So to do that, I would go back into the formula. So I can come here in the applied steps pane and then click on this gear icon. And when I do that, it is going to open the custom column dialog box. And here in CSV.document, in this formula, I would wrap this within table.promote headers function. And when I do that, it is going to again apply the entire formula for each row, and it is going to promote the first header in each of these tables. So you can see if I click on this table, it shows me salesperson, product name, quantity sold. If I come here, it shows me sales rep, unit sold. So the header names are inconsistent, but at least all the tables now have proper headers. Now what I want to do is I want to combine them and then extract the data, the column headers. So let's do one thing. Let's delete this column here. So we don't want this. So let's remove this one. Now for this custom column, let's add a new step. And here, because I want to combine them all, I would first convert it into a list. So to convert it into a list, as of now, this is a table. I would just use the column name here. So here what it does is it remove column means that it is referring to the previous step, which gives me this table. And when I put custom in square brackets, it is going to give me this same data, but as a list. So see what happens when I come here. It gives me this data as a list. And the reason I want it as a list is because I want to combine all of these tables using a function called table.combine. And that function takes a list as the input. So if it is not a list, it would not work. So it is important for me to first convert this into a list. Now I can use this function called table.combine. And it takes a list of tables and then combine all of these tables. See what happens when I click outside. It has combined all of these tables. Now you can see that there is a mismatch. I have these null values here because in one of the tables, in one of the CSV files, the column name was salesperson, and in other CSV file, it was sales person name or something like this. So those column headers were inconsistent, and this is why I'm seeing these null values here. Anyway, it doesn't matter for me right now here because all I want are all the column names. So to do that, I would come here and use this formula, which is table.column names. Oh, it removed it. So let me copy this. Table.column names, and I would wrap this entire formula within table.column names and see what happens. Now it is going to give me these column names as a list. Now these are all the column names from all the CSV files, including the inconsistent ones as well. For example, you can see here I have salesperson and I also have sales rep. So all the inconsistent headers are now with me as a single list. Now I want to load this data into Excel so that I can create a mapping table, but I cannot load this list, so I can convert this into an Excel table. So I would just come here, click on to table. When I do that, it is going to convert this into a table. Now this is something I can load back into Excel. But before that, let's just rename a few things. So maybe I can say all call names. And let's also rename this to call names. Now let's load this data into Excel. So let's click on close and load. So this is going to load this data into Excel. Oh, so it's creating a new sheet here with the name called names. So let me, I already have the mapping one. Let me delete this and let me call this mapping. Now, the first step is done, which means that I have all the column names as a table in my Excel file. Now, the second step is to create a mapping table. So now after step 1, I have all these column names here in this table. Now I need to create a mapping table, which is a very simple process. All you have to do is come here and add a new column. Let's call it new names, and then just put the name that you want for each column header. Now in this case, there are column headers which are right and column headers which are not right. So we would give the names in such a way that it will only have the new column header's name that we want in the final data. For example, in this case, salesperson is the column name I want, but I also have sales rep, but I do not want sales rep, I want salesperson. So I would put salesperson here. So what it is going to do is, in the data, when we are going to combine everything in the last step, it is going to look at salesperson column and sales rep column, but make sure that the name of both of these columns is the one specified in the new names column. Similarly, product name I can put here, and I also have item here, so item I'll name it as product name. Quantity sold, then I also have units sold, which I would make it as quantity sold, and QTY again, quantity sold. For price, I think it's the unique column name here. For date of transaction, I have this part here, date, so I would use this instead of date of transaction, and region again is unique. So now I have a mapping table, and I'm going to use this mapping table in the third step to combine all the CSV files. Now this is a manual process that you would have to do, because Power Query has no idea whether date of transaction and date column are actually the same or different. So you would have to go in and through this mapping table, let Power Query know that these are the same columns. So combine the data from these columns into one single column. Also, this is a one-time thing. So once you have done this, you don't have to do it again and again. In future, if let's say you have new files that come in that have new column names, then you can edit this mapping table. You can just fill the blanks, but you do not have to redo this again and again. Now, once you have this mapping table, we will open this in Power Query. So right click on any of these cells, then click on get data from table range. So this is going to open this table in a Power Query editor. So here I have this data. Let's rename this to mapping table. You can call it anything you want. And I have this data here. Now, as of now, this is a table, but I want it as a list for my third step. So to convert this into a list, what I would do is just add a new step and then use table.toRows function, which is going to convert each row into a list. See what happens when I click outside. It is going to give me a list of list where this was my source data, where I had this column. It is going to convert this into a list. So a list that would have salesperson and salesperson. So the old name and the new name. See what happens when I come here. You can see I have list here, and then these are all the same. But if I come here, you'll see I have date of transaction, which is the old name, and date, which is the new name. So this is going to use this list where it is going to identify that there is an old name that needs to be replaced by the new name. So this is an important step. Another thing we need to do is save this as a connection only query, because we do not want to load this back into Excel. We already have this in Excel. So we would save this as a connection only query. So go to File, Close and Load to, and here I would click on only create connection. So this is going to create a mapping table connection only query. Now we are done with two steps. Now the final step is to use these to combine the data from all the CSV files. So let's see how to do that. So now in step 3, we are going to use this mapping table to combine all the CSV files. So I would go to the data tab here, and then again go to from file, from folder, and then choose the folder that has the CSV files. So in this case, downloads folder here, and then I have this folder. And now it is going to open Power Query and show me all the files, and then I'm going to combine those files just like we did while we were extracting the column names. So here I would click on transform data. And this is showing me all these 3 files that I have in the folder. Now the first step, again, as I showed earlier, is we are going to filter this. So I would come here and then go to text filter, begins with, and here I would use .csv, so that this is like future proofing in case there are other types of files, Excel files or PDF files, then our query won't break. And now I'm going to remove all the other columns. So let's remove the other columns. Now I'm just left with binary. So let's add a new column. And here extract the data in the binary file, just like we did in the first step. So I would use csv.document and then content here. And now when I click OK, it extracts the table, but the column headers are not there. So again, go back into this step. And here I would use table.promote headers. So it is going to promote the headers. You can see now if I click on any of these tables, I have the headers which are right, but the headers again are inconsistent, and we need to change these headers and make them consistent. So what we are going to do is again go back to in this custom column formula, and now we are going to rename these columns. So now I'm going to use a rename table.rename columns formula, and in this formula the first one is the table, which is going to be given by this part here. So this gives the table that has the column headers in place, and the second step is the renames that we want to do as a list. And in this case we already have created a mapping table. So otherwise what you can do is you have to give the renames as a list, where you first give the old name of the column name and the new name, and it goes in and changes the old name to the new name. But in this case we already have it as a mapping table, and this is why I said we need the mapping table as a list of lists. So here I can just use mapping table, and then the third argument is going to be this argument, which is missing field ignored. And the reason for this is that not all columns are going to be there in each table. So in case it encounters a rename missing mapping table column pair which is not there, it is just going to ignore it and go ahead with the ones that are already there. See what happens now when I click OK. It gives me this result, and in this case now I have this table, and you'll see that the table column names are all consistent, which means that now these tables are ready to be combined. There is not going to be any issue. So what I would do is just remove this part here. So remove this content column. So I just have this custom column here. I would convert this into a list. So I can right click, go to drill down. So it gives me these tables as a list, and now I can use table.combine, and it gives me the result. And you can see now I have everything which is perfect. Salesperson is the column name, no matter what the column name was there in the CSV file. We've already tackled it using the mapping table, and all the salesperson names are there in the salesperson column with one single column header. Now my data is ready to be put into Excel, so I can close and load too. So this is going to insert a new sheet and put this data into Excel. So you can see I have my data, and my data is perfectly combined. There is no issues. All the data, everything is perfectly in one single column. All the names are right, all the product names are right, and everything is fine. But let's say now I go back and I add a new file into the folder, and that has some other column name. What happens in that case? So let's try and do that. So I would go back to the folder, and I have this new file north.csv, and I drag and put this file in the folder. Now let's go back into our Excel file and see what happens. So if I come to the mapping table here and I right click and refresh it, see what happens. It is going to give me any new column that is added in the new file, and it shows me this blank, which means that everything else works perfectly, but there is this new name that is there in the new file. So I would have to assign a new name to this existing column name that is not matching. For example, in this case we have region, but then we have territory here. So I can just come here and just copy and paste region in this case. But if I don't do that, what happens with the data file? If I come here and I right click and I try and refresh, it is not going to work, because it tells me we expect a rename operations value. Because if I go back to the mapping table, it is creating a pair, but territory is there, but the new name or the new column name is not there. So if I just come here and I mention region here and then go back here and now refresh it, as of now I had 38 records. See what happens when I refresh it. Now it is going to work, and it says 53 records. I also have data for the north column here. So you can see I also have the data for north. So if you have more CSV files coming in, not a problem. All you have to do is make sure that your mapping table is up to date. If there are any new column names, you will see the blanks in the mapping table. Just fill those blanks and you can refresh, and your data would be combined easily. So this is something that you can do easily with Power Query. This does take a little bit of setup, but this is a very scalable process. Now you can combine 10 files, 100 files, 1000 files, does not matter. It's a properly scalable method now. So I would give you this example file in the description so you can download it from there and use it. I hope you found this video useful. Also, if you're liking these videos, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and click on the bell icon so that you never miss out on any new Excel tips video I come up with. Thank you and have a nice day.